Okay, so in the last video, I got a start on the first part right here, and I'm realizing make sure that all of my dimensions are correct. And let's take a look. Right here, we can see, so it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tall, so 1.25, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wide. So that actually makes it 1.75 wide. And what's kind of great about this is I can actually go in, I double click here, and I can change that, and it kind of all adjusts. And that's not how it used to be, so this is a good thing right here. Now that I have this two-dimensional shape, you'll notice that it was not necessarily the most simple of shapes. It's not too complex, but it is not the most simple of shapes. And so you can make sketches as long as you can think of it as one thing that goes a certain distance and is three-dimensional but has one profile. It's all good. So I've got this. What I'm going to do now is finish my sketch, and the hint is that it automatically put it at this kind of isometric three-dimensional view. The next step is to go on over and use Extrude. In general, tools that are closer to the left are much more commonly used than the ones that are on the right, and it kind of goes generally through there. So these ones are used often. Extrude and revolve are used the most often, so they're bigger. Hole and fillet, those are used fairly often, but a lot of these other ones are not used quite as often. And these, even work planes, are again not even used as often as these features, which are not used quite as often as these features, which are definitely not used as much as sketches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this three-dimensional. Way back when there was a toy that you could buy, and I don't know if anybody has this, but it was a toy that you would get like a star shape or a half moon or something like that, and you would push Play-Doh through, and it would make it that shape except long. So if it was a square, it would make it a square prism, essentially. This is the same thing. It's called an extrusion. That is an extruder. And so what we do is we take a profile, and there's only one shape, so that's our profile, and only one sketch plane, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to take that and make that a certain distance and a certain thickness. So I'm going to double check my drawing here real quick, and I'm going to see how far that goes. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. My grid spacing is 1/4 of an inch, and so that means it's 1.25. A little bit of magic here that I didn't show in the last video, but if you take those 5 squares times, a little asterisk there, the 0.25, I just did the math in my head, but you can also have the math be done by Inventor. And so sometimes when you're dividing by 3, if you're doing different measurements that you want to use mathematically, you can put a mathematical expression in here and it will work. And so there we go. We've got this kind of L shape. We need to, according to our drawing, make a couple cuts. And there's different options, and so I'm going to start my next sketch, and I need to pick another plane, another flat surface through space where I can draw something and then cut it the rest of the way. For this one, I'm going to start one right here on the front, and I'm going to take another look at my drawing. So if I were standing here and I was on this plane, I would know that I need to cut kind of a little rectangle here, and it needs to go, let's see, 1, 2, 3 squares deep, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my rectangle right here. And notice I clicked on the top line and clicked on the bottom line. That automatically puts in constraints and makes it so that the top and the bottom line up. And so that is the correct way. That's the way it's supposed to be. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my other trick where I click, move my mouse somewhere in between and up, and then click again, and then I can type in that 0.5 dimension. I can do the same thing over here. click, click, and 0.5. And there we go. I have the rectangle. It is fully constrained. That is good. And it's in the right spot. It's the right size. There we go. So I'm all good. That's all I had to do. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude again. We can select shapes. We can change the direction, and you'll notice that it actually changed one of these icons. We have our flips, and then it also said to cut, so we can join or add, we can cut, or we can do this other one that's called intersect, which is we might use later on, but it's not commonly used right now. This time though, it only goes 0.75, 3 of those squares going the right direction, and it's cutting. If this were flipped and cutting, it would give me an error because it is cutting things that don't exist. Nothing exists over here. You can't cut something that doesn't exist. So instead, I can flip that, and now it will cut that out. Alright, so far looking good. Now I just have to cut this next area, and I'm actually going to create that sketch on this back face right here. So if I click on it and then click Start New Sketch, it knows that I want to create that sketch there. So I click on this line just to line those two things up. I click here. I can reference my drawing and see, okay, it's 1 square, 0.25 from left to right, and then it's 1 square tall. And so, again, I'm just getting those dimensions straight from the drawing. So click, click, move. This one is 0.25. Click, click, move. 0.25. There we go. And then, of course, I can click once and say, okay, this one's 0.25. All right. Fully constrained. It's got the right location. It has the right size. I can hit finish. I can hit extrude. That's all new. We're cutting, of course. This time, though, instead of having it go a certain distance, I'm going to have it go through all. And this is a good habit to get into. The reason you want to do this is if I made a mistake and this was supposed to be a different dimension, it's still going to cut everything out. And we will always do that because it's going to go through all. I'm going to hit OK. And there we go. I've got this part. It is properly dimensioned. We've gone through the whole thing, and it's all good. Okay. So there we've got that part. Before I let you go, I am going to tell you one little trick, though, as well. Over here on this left-hand side, we have our browser. You can see I have my first extrusion. That's the first thing I made. Second extrusion, that's the second thing I cut. And then the third extrusion was the next thing. Okay. If I want to see what it's like, what was it like right after extrusion 1, I can go back by changing this end of part. Another thing I can do is, let's say my dimensions weren't totally right. So I can go back in, go to this sketch. It's going to take me back, and maybe this was supposed to be 2 inches. I can change that, and the magic is it updates everything. I happen to have done it correctly after making a minor little change, so I'm going to bring that back to the dimension it's supposed to be, and boom, there you go. So you can fix mistakes. Control-Z really is one thing that you use maybe one time in a row. Otherwise, there's a better way to do it. And so if you are looking at how to fix your drawings or your parts, let me know. I can probably help you out. Otherwise, good luck and have fun with this. It's one thing that I know is a lot of fun.